Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Barn Talk. I'm Glenn Kennedy, along with my host, Charles Moss. Today, we have retired police officer Tommy Garcia, and Tommy is also the police historian. And so, Tommy, how are you today?
Oh, fine, thank you.
Glad to have you here.
So let's get right into it. So, how did the police department actually start?
Well, the sheriff's department used to patrol West Covina, and West Covina in 1935 decided to create a police department. So that's where the idea began. And so they went through the process. They actually put together a program to get police cars and do whatever. Well, it ended up that they couldn't afford to get a police station or anything like that. So they contacted a person named Reig, who was a really did a lot of activities for the city, and they used his house for the police department, and that's where it started. And it actually started in 1936, but they didn't have their first police car till 1941.
Wow.
That's something.
Joseph Frisch was the first police officer. He was the police officer chief of police, and there was only one. So, and he rode a motorcycle for his personal motorcycle. That's what he used for his patrol vehicle. And then the department went from there. It went from one to, at its highest, it's been 128 officers.
What are we at now currently?
Right now we're authorized 90, but we're at around 86 or so, and they're still recruiting. They're still trying to get. West Covina has always been a very progressive police department, and a lot of officers want to work for West Covina. So we get a lot of lateral police officers who come here because they're well trained. Always the newest equipment. Whenever we have new equipment comes out, West Covina tests it out, and then if it works out, they use it. So West Covina has been a very progressive department from its onset.
So, maybe our most famous police officer is, I think, is Jack Ham. What was it? It was Officer Ham.
Jack Ham was motor officer, yes,
And he held all the endurance records for many years. I think he still might hold them.
yes, yeah. He was a motorcycle racer, and he was excellent on a motorcycle. He ended up passing away in a motorcycle accident, but he was our first officer who was killed in the line of duty.
So we get to the so that's the 1930s. So we get to the 1940s, and how many officers do we have then?
We have probably around 10 officers
Okay.
at that point in the 1940s, and then the city contracted with the city of Covina to use their jail facilities. We didn't have a jail yet, so we would transport suspects to the Covina City Jail. Of course, Covina's been around a lot longer, and then West Covina split from Covina. So we use their facilities to do any of our bookings or things of that nature, because we're still working out of the Mr. Reig's house.
So I was told the American Legion there on Foothill Boulevard was that a police station at one time or a jail at
Where at?
the American Legion? Is that true?
That
Or
is not. That is
okay,
not
I
correct,
wanted to
yeah.
clear that up.
Yeah. After the Mr. Reig's residence, that we moved to where the fire station number 1 is right there.
Yes.
That building, and then that was the next police station.
Yeah, and then the city hall's right next door, the old house there,
City
right,
Hall,
Charles?
yes.
That's right. I remember when you
Well,
were there.
whose house was that?
That belonged to the Moore family.
Okay.
And Mr. Moore was he was the head of the Richfield gas station, the Richfield Oil Company even. He built that. That's Adobe Home. Is that the
Okay.
old Adobe
Yeah,
Home?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Where the old chamber used to be and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, and he built that. I don't remember the year he built that, but I remember the adobe blocks out in the sun being dried.
Oh,
And,
really?
Wow.
Yeah, we go.
So
over there
was that before World War II or after World War II?
after World War II.
After World War II.
Yeah,
Okay.
they just bring dirt in, and they poured the foundation, and they would mix that adobe and put whatever they oil and whatever they put in it, and let the
Wow.
blocks dry and start building. Yeah,
That's interesting.
he was from Bakersfield, and he wanted a house cool, so big thick walls, and they eventually moved there. And then I guess you guys bought it from him then.
Well, in 1950 is when they acquired that land where the current police station's at.
Okay, yeah, that
1950.
makes sense. That's about the time. Yeah, the Moore family.
So we get to the 1950s, and how does the department progress from there?
It's continued to grow. There was several chief of police during that time. They went through several. The chief of police increased the salary to $1,800 a year right before 1950, 1949. So it just continued to grow. It continued to expand, and they started purchasing a lot more police cars.
Yes.
So to accommodate the patrol crew. So it just grew and grew and grew, and they kept funding it, so it kept growing.
So I know one of the chief's police was Felborn Stanford, and that's where the street Felborn is named after.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to throw that little trivia in there.
Yeah, he was appointed in 1952.
Okay.
So
So now we get to the 60s.
the 60s things really started going. Remember, we had several riots in the 60s. So the departments needed to expand to accommodate certain things that were going on. So the department grew, and as the department grew, they decided that's when our SWAT team in the 1960s started, 1969, because of the riots that occurred in Watts. And they also, El Monte had a terrible shooting where one of the officers got killed. And our department members got called down there to help, but we didn't have the firearms or things we needed to really deal with that situation. So the department decided, okay, we got to start expanding our equipment and our specialized units. And so they started the SWAT team in 1969 to deal with those kind of issues. And the SWAT team is still currently in use today. It's one of the oldest SWAT teams in the nation.
I didn't know that. Wow.
That's something. Yeah.
That is something.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to the 70s.
The 70s was when the department went crazy. Chief Craig Meacham was chief of police, a very, very progressive chief. And he started several units that some of them continue today. So the 70s is when they started hiring a lot more people. We went to, we were at like 50 something, and we went to 78 toward the end of the 70s, and then we were into the 80s by the 80 personnel by the 1980s. So the 70s is when everything expanded under Chief Meacham. He started programs where he would go to the academy. It's called the provisional program, and they would interview the top people at the academy, and instead of waiting until the end of the academy, they would hire them right there on the spot. If they did well, and they continued on with West Covina, and they got a lot of good personnel that way. Because West Covina is one of the biggest departments in the valley. So it was inevitable that a lot of departments came to us for different kinds of training. We had range masters, we had SWAT trainers, we had canines. The canines also started in the 70s.
Yes.
Motors expanded in the 70s. So many things happened in the 70s. It was amazing.
So I know that Chief Meacham was used to sit at this table and have lunch. He was a barn boy
Yes,
for,
he was.
for many, many years.
Fine person.
And then he ended up becoming a sheriff. Where did he go?
He was the U.S. Marshal.
The U.S. I'm sorry, he
Yeah,
was the U.S.
yeah.
Marshal.
Yes.
Marshal.
For this region.
And he was he's one of the good guys. He was
Yeah.
really one of the
he
good
was
guys.
great. We were lucky to have him.
Yes,
Yeah.
we were.
Yes.
Where was the academy? Was that the LAPD academy, or was you had your separate?
Rio Hondo, was it?
No, we first started using the LA Sheriff's Academy. That's where most people went. Some people went to whatever academy could accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go to whatever academy, and then Rio Hondo became our permanent academy once it was established. And so most of our people went to the Rio Hondo Academy. But they still sometimes they'll go to the Orange County Sheriff's Academy, the LA County Sheriff's Academy, the academy in Huntington Beach. There's different academies that they go to.
Okay.
And then we get a lot of laterals too that already have experience.
So now we get to the 80s and 90s. It's a whole different ballgame now, right?
Yes, it is. Well, in the early 80s, PCP became prevalent. So that was a whole different set of equipment. One of the things that West Covina purchased was called a PCP net. So one guy would have a long pole, and because the PCP, as you know, people on PCP become very strong because they feel no pain.
Yes.
So it was really difficult to bring them down and take them into custody. So one guy would get on a long pole, another guy would have a fire extinguisher, and two people would have a net. So the very first time we used that, there was a PCP suspect on a diving board. And he was completely naked because they get very hot, so they tend to take the clothes off. So the officer with the pole was poking him toward the end, trying to get him away from the end because he didn't want him to fall in the water. But he decided he was going to jump, so they hit him with the fire extinguisher. The other two officers caught him in the net and fished him out just like a fish.
Okay.
Were able to take him into custody, and it was so, everybody throughout the nation was using these nets, but that was such an unusual way to catch a suspect that we actually won a ping pong table for the best way to use the net. And we put that in our basement, and a lot of guys spent a lot of time playing on that thing after work. But so different things, tasers came out, stun guns came out, beanbag rounds, all the different things that we use specifically came from the people that are on PCP because it was hard to deal with those people. So you had to find different ways to deal with them without shooting them.
Yeah,
without
that's right.
trying not to hurt them, because if you hit them over and over again with a nightstick, you just end up breaking bones, and they don't stop because they can't feel pain.
Oh, I didn't.
So you don't want to just break every bone in the body. You just want to try to take them into custody as quickly as possible with the least amount of injury. So once West Covina started using all these tools, other departments always did what West Covina did. And so they started using the tools and things, and we end up, inevitably our guys are trained to train others. And so we start training other departments and doing all those things. The same thing with Covina's current SWAT team is West Covina did most of their training. And when they first started doing call-outs, they didn't have hostage negotiations, nor did they have snipers. So they would have a call-out, and they would call us and use our snipers and our hostage negotiations to assist them. And so it's just, West Covina has just been one of the leaders in the valley, sometimes in the state, on things that we did. One of the other things that West Covina did was we started this simulator training program, which was a 4-hour training with lectures and stuff. And currently, that system is used in 28 locations throughout California and in several locations throughout the United States. And that's one of the things West Covina did. The other thing West Covina did, started our own dispatch program that was used with over 20 departments throughout California, and they would pay us to do their computer stuff, anything they needed to do that had to do with dispatching and those kind of things. So West Covina has been a leader in a lot of things from the get-go. From when they put the department together, they did it correctly, and it's been a good ride.
Yes, we have a very good department.
Very good.
Very good. And I'd like to get to the officers who actually lost their lives. So they need to be mentioned too.
Okay. Well, obviously, Ham
Yes.
lost his life in traffic accident. Jay Jackson lost his life at the end of a pursuit.
Yes.
He was shot and he lost life. And then Ken Reedy lost his life by a PCP suspect.
Yes, he did.
So those are our three officers that lost their lives in the service of their duty in West Covina.
So I remember when West Covina had 128 officers, and they also had 40 or 50 reserve officers.
Yes, yes.
And so we basically had 180 police officers, and we were well staffed, and that's dwindled down to just about how many reserve officers do we have today?
Oh wow! I think we're down to probably 10.
Wow, only 10.
Right, and the program has dwindled quite a bit, and oh my goodness, having a reserve crew like we did back in the day that they were fully staffed. It was wonderful. I mean, you had partners all the time. You had extra officers to respond to calls. It was a great deal. So hopefully we'll get back to that, and West Covina needs to be at about 130 or so. To really
We're authorized for 160, and we need it. I mean, we just can't afford it. Problem is, there's just no money for it.
Absolutely.
So we got what we got. So, well, with that, I'd like to tell everybody thank you for watching, and catch us next time. And have a nice day. Thank you.